People who grew up in overly strict families, what was the most absurd rule you had to follow? I wasn't allowed to use deodorants. My parents classified them as perfume, and that was considered an excess in our house. We had other crazy rules, but this was probably the most unusual one. One of my school friends wasn't allowed to go out in the evenings. We were 16, so every Friday he would go to bed early, then climb out the window and down a narrow fire escape to the first floor. The dude lived on the 18th floor and did this for a year until his parents finally caught him. Jesus Christ, that sounds fucking dangerous. Hell yes, and the scariest part was that he had to climb back up drunk. We always hung out in bars. We told him he was crazy, but surprisingly, he's still alive and well. I was forbidden from wearing red clothes because my grandmother said it was, quote, a whorish color. No red clothes, red nail polish, red lipstick, or red jewelry. So, as soon as I finished high school, I dyed my hair fire engine red and kept it that way for 10 years, just to piss off my grandma. But she eventually started to like the color and was even a bit upset when I dyed it something else. Edited. I consider my grandma a parent because, essentially, she's the one who raised me my whole life. Did you grow up in the early 1900s? If I listened to non-Christian music, I could be punished for it for weeks. Just wondering, did you end up devout like your parents wanted? Or did you turn away from the faith instead? I turned away from both my parents and the faith completely. I went to a private school where any non-Christian music was considered devilish. I ended up discovering the band Petra, which is Christian metal, and started blasting it in the school parking lot. Found a loophole in rock music, so to speak. And now, many years later, most of my playlist is AC/DC and Metallica. I wasn't allowed to stay in my room for long periods, except when I went to sleep at night. Napping during the day was also forbidden. I wasn't allowed to take my laptop outside the living room. When I started commuting to college, because dorm rooms were expensive, I had to go into my dad and stepmom's room to report that I was home. If I didn't do this every day, they would yell at me. I had to answer their texts instantly. Once I missed a call from my dad because I was working until 3 a.m., and I called him back in the morning, to which he threatened to call the police and report me missing next time. Another time, I decided to go to a colleague's place to play Dungeons & Dragons. My stepmother asked me to write down my colleague's full name, his race, and also asked me to find out if he had committed any crimes or used illegal substances. This only happened once, but it was wildly strange. I'm sure there was more, but I can't remember anything else right now. I haven't had to deal with their nonsense for a long time as we haven't spoken in 8 months. Oh, we had so many of them. The most fucked up one was when, for a whole year, we had to address our parents as Dear Mother and Dear Father, and our siblings as Dear Brother and Dear Sister. My dad was a sick bastard who could pull some crazy shit out of his ass and then strictly enforce it until he left on another military assignment. Fortunately, the next time we saw him, he had forgotten about it. I was never allowed to hang out with friends. Not after school, not on weekends, not on holidays, and so on. After a while, people stopped inviting me anywhere, and the internet became my only friend. No wonder I now prefer my online friends. And now your parents must be pissed that you rarely leave the house, right? That was the case until I moved out. Now dad doesn't like that he rarely sees me. My insane stepfather only allowed us to take a shit until 6 p.m. If you didn't make it, you waited until the next morning. From 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., I was forbidden from closing my bedroom door. I remember when I was a teenager, I once went to a friend's house to play video games. While we were at his place, I felt like something was off, but I couldn't figure out what exactly. It was only when I was leaving that I noticed he didn't have a door on his room. It had been simply taken off its hinges and carried away. I was told that his parents are religious, but I didn't think it was to that extent. When I was dating my now wife, her parents demanded a full itinerary for every one of our dates. She was 19 but still living with her parents. The first time, I thought they were asking roughly what we planned to do, so I said, well, we're going to a concert, then probably dinner, and maybe grab coffee somewhere. They weren't satisfied with that answer. What concert? What time do the doors open? What time does it end? What restaurant will you be dining at? What time is dinner planned? What cafe will you get coffee at? I mumbled something like, I haven't thought that far ahead. We'll let you know as we go. She's not going anywhere until you answer. I had to improvise. They relaxed a bit. And from then on, I always fed them a line of bullshit. And then we did whatever we wanted. Very, very strange people. I've written about this in another thread before, but I was forbidden from visiting boys or having them over at my house. Always. Even when I was just a little kid and relationships were out of the question. My mom was afraid I would become a girl of loose morals. Unfortunately for her, shielding me from boys made me want them even more later on. I was forbidden from going to the prom because dancing is a devilish pastime. We were forbidden from listening to music while cleaning, with the explanation that it would distract us. We also weren't allowed to hang out with friends on Sundays because it was family day, even though we, as a family, did nothing and everyone sat in their own rooms. I had an unlimited phone plan, but if I sent more than 100 SMS a month, I was punished. We were forbidden to be alone. We always had to be in our parents' sight, and until we were 18, we had to ask our parents' permission to go to the toilet. My mom served us giant portions of food, like 4 times the normal size, and forced us to eat everything to the last crumb. Often we felt sick afterwards, but sometimes it was even advantageous because after eating we had to clean the house. Years later, I found out my mom had an eating disorder. It turned out she gave us quadruple portions because she didn't want to feel shitty about herself for eating normal portions. Edited. No, I'm not fat. In one of the foster homes I lived in, there was a rule. If the adults aren't home, the children can't be inside. So sometimes it happened that I came home from school around 2:30 p.m. and sat on the porch until 8 p.m. Sometimes later, until the foster parents came home from work. And this was the same in winter. You have no idea how severely and often I was punished. Punishment in our house meant something completely different compared to other families. When I was punished, I wasn't allowed to do anything at all. I woke up, sat at the kitchen table, read books chosen by my parents that were completely uninteresting to me all day, and went to sleep. Once I was punished for a C grade for 6 months, and I was also constantly forced to work in the garden. I worked there all weekend from morning till evening, after which I was sent to read before bed. My brother was once forced to copy the entire Bible as punishment. He couldn't take it and ran away from home without finishing it. There was also a time when my stepmother found my Diablo 2 strategy guide and decided I was worshiping Satan. I had to throw away both the book and the game and all the other discs. When I was punished, I wasn't allowed to do anything at all. Sounds a bit harsh. Once I was punished for a C grade for 6 months? Seems like your parents were a bit nuts. My brother was once forced to copy the entire Bible as punishment. Ah, so that's what it's all about. My mom didn't allow opening new milk without her permission, or opening anything at all, really. For example, when I finished a carton of milk, I couldn't just go to the garage and bring a new one, like in normal families. I had to call my mom and ask if I could open new milk. The first time I realized this wasn't normal was when I was at a friend's house and saw her calmly open a new gallon of milk. I remember anxiety washing over me and I said, "Listen, if you don't tell your mom about this right now, she'll go crazy later." My friend was like, I think mom will survive me wanting some milk. At that moment, something clicked in my head, and I realized my mom had a control mania. It might sound trivial, but I was punished for every mistake. You know what that leads to? It leads to parents raising an excellent liar who is afraid to try new things and always stays in their comfort zone. Because any failure is associated not with a lesson to be learned, but with punishment. And when he leaves his parents' house, it will take many years before he gets rid of this psychological fear of failure. The quirky thing wasn't the rule itself, but the fact that we only had one rule. Don't burn the house down. That's it. I could do whatever I wanted, as long as the house wasn't a pile of ashes when my parents got home. Should have flooded it. I was forbidden from hanging posters on the walls, even those with sticky tack that leave no trace. My parents were obsessed with keeping the house in perfect condition for resale. I had a girly room, and my brother had a boy's room. Mine was painted pink, even though I never liked it, even when I was a little kid. My brother's room was baseball themed. If mom was okay with posters of baseball players, my brother could hang them on the wall, even framed. But I was only ever allowed to hang a Monet print water lilies, also framed, because it was the only piece of art mom liked that matched the pink room. They've been living in that house for almost 30 years now and aren't even thinking about moving. I was forbidden from using the money cheat in The Sims because that's not how it works in the real world. Once I disobeyed and used the cheat, and then I couldn't explain where I got so much money, so I was punished and the game was taken away. I was once punished for 2 months because my school bus was late. In our house, no one was allowed to touch the mail except my father. And it didn't matter when he got home. The mail had to be in the mailbox and wait for Dad. Everything that came for us was opened only by him, regardless of who the recipient was. And Dad always knew if someone had touched the mailbox. You're up to your ears in debt. In our house, no one was allowed to shave or have a razor, yet I was allowed to go to a barber and shave at a friend's place. Once I disobeyed and shaved at home. Because of that, Mom took away my computer. Still can't see the logic. I was banned from shaving my legs. I suspect my mom hoped the hair on my legs would scare all the boys away. But that wasn't even necessary. My terrible personality was enough. Thank you very much for watching. In the comments below the video, people who grew up in overly strict families, write what the most absurd rule you had to follow was, and don't forget to check out our other videos. Goodbye.